In this video, I want to give you my top tips for how to pass your PMP exam. My first set of tips are about the pre-preparation stage. And the absolute first thing you have to do is to read the PMP handbook and, of course, the examination content outline, the ECO or ECO. Second, don't rush your application process. Use a spreadsheet to help you to document all the information you'll need to demonstrate in the application process, particularly around your educational attainments and your project management experience. Make sure that you speak to your boss and to any former bosses that you're going to call upon to reference or demonstrate your experience levels. Next, don't rush your preparation. You have a whole year to do it, so you may as well do it right, because the disappointment of failing and having to retake it, it's much better to get it right first time. And of course, equip yourself with everything that you need, all of the study aids, all of the resources that will help you to feel confident in taking your exam. It's also important to have the support that you need. Make sure that your family, particularly your close family, are fully on board with your project and your aspirations so that they can support you through the process. You will be working extra hours to study and prepare. They need to be ready for it. They need to be able to support you in that and not make additional calls on your time that will distract you. And also think about the support you can get from professionals, from mentors, from training organisations, from people like me. I, of course, have a PMP study guide, a resource kit for people studying for PMP, and people who sign up that can get access to me and to my support. But more important are the professionals who deliver accredited or unaccredited training, and I'll talk more about that later on. And of course, mentors from your local PMI chapter and from the organisation that you work in. And I think the money you spend on a good learning provider is money well spent. Don't go cheap, because if you do, you may regret the expenditure. Now, you don't need to go to a learning provider at all. You can study for it yourself, and if you're confident, you've got a lot of experience, that's absolutely fine. But a good learning provider is the best single source of support that you can get. We recommend two, and I'll talk about those later on. Treat your study like a project, and like any project, you need a plan. So create a study plan. And your study is more like a marathon than a sprint, so don't aim to cover too much ground too quickly. Take your time, pace yourself. Make sure that your learning is deep and intense, so that when you come to the examination, it's in there. It's not at a shallow level, ready to disappear when you're put under pressure. Create opportunities in your plan to study as often as possible. Short sprints are better than long sessions, just in terms of your ability to absorb the information. Even 10 or 15 minutes for a short review of a single topic will help you to learn it. But if you have too many long sessions, then you really do risk burnout. But you know yourself best, so work to your own personal preferences. Once you have it, commit to your study plan, but of course don't be afraid to review it from time to time to check that it's still working for you. Remember, project management isn't just about predictive, planned projects. It's also about adaptive, agile projects where we review our process from time to time. For most people, the best approach is to set yourself a regular pattern that you can stick to. Now, of course, there will be holidays, there will be special circumstances, but that regularity and sticking to it with discipline is what will get you through a difficult process. And of course, as part of this pattern, build in days off. That way you won't get exhausted and jaded with the process. Track your progress to your plan as you go. Celebrate any milestones and achievements. And of course, as soon as you find your plan isn't working or you're drifting, then take a step back and review your process, review your plan. However, if you can, in the run-up to your exam, start to schedule a few bigger chunks of study time. If you can, speak with your employer. The ideal, of course, is to get paid study leave from your employer, and some employers will grant that. But if you can't, aim for unpaid study leave. And if you really can't get that, then consider using some of your vacation time to study so that you can be working at the time of day when you're at your best, rather than doing all of your studying, particularly in the run-up to the exam, at the end of a hard working day. And finally, you should plan to complete your study around 2 or 3 weeks before the exam. That way you can use the last couple of weeks for test questions and revision. If you're still studying new stuff in the run-up to the exam, there's a real worry that it won't stick. And therefore, when the questions come up about those topics, you will struggle, and that could damage your confidence, particularly if it comes up early in the exam. So what are my tips for actually studying? Firstly, there are lots of materials available to you, and whether or not you choose to go for a structured training course, it is wise to have a good PMP preparation book. There are a number on the market, and I'll put links in the description. I'd also suggest that if you can afford it, and I know these things are expensive, but if you can afford it, it may be worth getting a second book with a different perspective. That way, if you don't follow the way that one author describes a particular concept, you can look at the way a different author describes it, and it'll possibly click for you. You should start your preparation by reviewing the key documents that PMP recommends, and those, of course, are the PMBOK guide. And at the moment, as I speak, both the 7th edition and the 6th edition are current as far as the PMP syllabus goes. Keep an eye on the PMI's website for the guidance on the balance of your preparation on those. But start with an overall review of these two documents. Particularly, the 6th edition is very heavy, so you need to scan through it so you understand the content. And don't forget the Agile Practice Guide, which is another core contributor to the syllabus. Once you've understood the basics of what's in these 3 core documents, you can then start to detail your study around the content and what you particularly need to focus on. Be realistic about the methods that you use. You know your own self best, but I recommend active studying. Don't just read the book. When you've read a little bit, think about it. Try to draw diagrams, explain it in your own words, make notes about it. The more you can actively process the information you're learning, then the better it will stick. And it's important to note that rote learning is not a part of the PMP examination. Therefore, although you need to be familiar with all the definitions in the PMBOK guide and read through the glossary to do that, you don't need to be able to quote any of them, you don't need to learn any of them by heart. I recommend that in each session you set yourself a limited amount to study in terms of the breadth. Divide your study up into a number of themes. You can use any structure that the PMI gives you or create your own. Of course, in PMBOK 7, we've got things like the domains, and we've got the models, methods, and artifacts. But you could go back to PMBOK 6 and work by process or work by knowledge area. But by focusing on one theme or maybe 2 themes in a session, you can really dig deep into it and feel you're making progress. And to check you're making progress, carry out regular reviews of your knowledge. A great way to do this is, as you go through, write yourself little question cards, prompts, and then when you do your review, look at the prompt card and then articulate out loud your knowledge about that area. When you notice that there are gaps in your knowledge or you feel uncertain, you can make a note of that and then plan that review back into your timeline. If you don't understand a particular topic, then there are lots of sources to go to. There are a number of great YouTube channels. Of course, this one has a lot of content targeted on explaining the concepts that are important for the PMP examination. And you'll also find long, detailed articles on my website that cover a lot of the concepts that are going to be important to your exam success. As you go, prepare your own diagrams, flowcharts, mind maps, any way that you can visualize the information you're learning. And I recommend that if you can, if you've got the space, put them up on the walls around where you're working so that your eyes and your brain start to become familiar with these. But the process of designing and drawing out those diagrams will help to embed the concept in your mind. And finally, for studying, do consider taking a structured training course. There are two broad types of course to consider. The first are from organisations that are ATPs, Authorised Training Partners of the PMI. This means two things. One, you can be certain that the content is going to conform to the PMI's requirements because the ATPs are required to deliver the PMI's own content to their students. This means you'll definitely cover the ground, but a lot of people are finding that the PMI's content is quite dry. So some ATPs supplement it, others deliver it cold. However, what often matters is the way it's delivered, and we recommend Grey Campus, I'll put links in the description, as an ATP that delivers the content very well. The alternative is to go to a non-accredited training provider that has an excellent reputation, one where its trainers deeply understand the content that is required for the PMP examination, but have chosen to design their own materials. And often these materials can be as good and better than the PMI's materials. In particular, we recommend PM Prepcast. This organisation and its leader Cornelius Fischner have years of experience helping aspiring PMP candidates to succeed. And again, I will put a link to their materials in the description. So where should you focus your learning? Well, of course, the places to start are the PMBOK guide, the 2 editions. Currently, as I make this, PMBOK 6 is still part of the PMP examination, and PMBOK 7 is about to become a part of the examination. How that evolves through time, only PMI knows, so keep an eye on their website for the guidance and continue to read the handbook, which will also contain that guidance. I expect, as I'm speaking now, that more and more of this content will go onto PMI Standards Plus website, and you'll be able to access it electronically, and the PMBOK itself will fall away as a source. And don't forget the Agile Practice Guide. This is a required reference to prepare for the PMP examination, and so questions will be drawn from the content. However, there are other books, other sources that PMI recommends, and I suspect these will change over time, so again, take a look at the PMI's website to see what they are currently recommending. You'll need to understand the difference between traditional or predictive project management on the one hand and adaptive or agile project management on the other hand. Understand how they come together to form hybrid project management methods, and you'll also need to know some of the agile methodologies. In particular, Scrum is a core part of the syllabus. It's well worth downloading the free Scrum guide and studying that with care. But you'll also need to know about things like Kanban as well. Get to know terms like definition of done, minimum viable product, or sprint retrospective. And understand the roles in agile projects, like those of Scrum Master or Product Owner or Development Team. But you also need to study soft skills like leadership, conflict management and negotiation. These are now part of the PMP examination and you have to cover them. And unfortunately, most of the reference books don't have a huge amount of dedicated material that will help you. So again, those are areas where I have focused on my YouTube channel and on my website articles. Indeed, if you buy my PMP study guide, which is not expensive, link below, if you buy my PMP study guide, you'll find access to all of those references to make it really easy for you to study those topics. Finally, learn the formulas and practice the calculations, particularly in the arenas of earned value management and the critical path method. There are also a large number of additional resources you can call on, and perhaps the most useful are exam questions and exam simulators. And without a doubt, if you spend time working through simulated examinations, you will not only feel more confident, but you will better understand where your strengths and weaknesses lie among the knowledge base. Practice as many questions as you can and do as many mock examinations as you can during your preparation, and aim to do 1 or 2 of them in the final weeks before your real exam. That way, you'll feel really confident that you're ready. Look at the scores you're getting, and as you start to see your scores rising and stabilizing at a high level, you will know you are ready. Now, some exam simulators are better than others because they more closely simulate the types of questions and the environment of the examination. So again, it is well worth it if you can afford it, investing in the better exam simulators, and we recommend the one from PM Prepcast as an industry-leading PMP exam simulator. Aim to do your simulated examinations in the right amount of time so that you're used to the time pressure of the exam. Currently, it's a 230-minute exam. Obviously, that can change from time to time, so again, keep an eye on the PMI's website. And once you've done your exam, take a look at the answers. Understand why you got some right and understand why some of them were wrong, and use the ones that you struggled on to dictate the next areas in review and understanding in terms of topics and types of question. And particularly if there is no examination available in your first language, get used to the way that the language is used in your preferred, strongest language. The exam itself is an important part of your preparation, so start by booking it a long way ahead. Make sure you can get a time slot that suits you when you are at the peak of your alertness. Once you have an exam date, then make sure you book a day off work in order to take your exam, and ideally a day off the day before, and also plan your study time in the 1 to 2 to 3 weeks ahead of the examination so that you can feel absolutely ready for it. Check, double check and triple check the date, the time and the place of your exam. And if you are travelling to an exam centre, then in the week or 2 before you're due to take the exam, actually test out the route. Make sure you know exactly where it is and you've got a sense of what the travel time is, and of course allow contingency, because travel can be difficult sometimes and you're a project manager unaware of those risks. Indeed, I'd advocate making yourself a checklist of all the things you need to do in the run-up to the examination itself, all the things you need to have, all the things you need to prepare, and plan to get to an examination centre, if you are using one, between an hour and 2 hours ahead. That gives you a lot of contingency, but it also, if everything goes well, gives you plenty of time to calm yourself and prepare yourself for the exam. Get an early night on the evening before your exam and get up early on the day of your exam so that you feel total control of your time. During the examination, don't rush your questions but move through them steadily and briskly. Read the question, think about what it's asking, and then give your answer. If there's a question you don't know, don't panic. Give the best answer you can think of and move on. Remember, it's only one question. You can always go back to that question if you have time, but at least there's an answer in there. And remember, sometimes answering a different question can remind you, prompt in your mind the answer to the first question. And always read the questions carefully. Answer the question that PMI is asking you, not the question you think they should be asking you. And again, if there is a difference between the answer you think PMI expects based on your understanding of its references and what you would do in the real world, then remember it's the PMI's exam, so you should give the answer you think that they are looking for. Don't worry about the first few questions. They will feel harder, not because they are harder questions, but because you will be on edge. That's why PMI doesn't score the first 5 questions. They're designed to ease you into the process. If you have time after you've completed a sequence of questions, then use that time to go back and check your answers, particularly looking for silly mistakes like misunderstanding a word or missing a word when you've read it, or with calculations recheck your calculations because it's easy to make a simple numerical error when you're in a hurry. Now you've got time, check those answers and make sure they're right. And my final tip, when you've done the exam, make some time to decompress. If you've passed, then you can really celebrate. But even if you haven't passed, pick yourself up, take a break, decompress, spend some time with friends, with family, with loved ones. Pick yourself up and make your plans for a retake. But here's the thing. If you plan carefully, if you work diligently, if you access all the support that's available to you, then there is every chance that you will succeed first time. Thousands and thousands of people just like you do. So take a look at the description below for links to the resources that I recommend. And with that, I'll simply wish you good luck. Please do give a thumbs up if you like this video. I'll be making loads more great project management videos for you, so please do subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of them. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. In the meantime, good luck with your exam.